Welcome. As the webinar wasn't able to be recorded last night, this will be in its place, the workshop on meditation, journaling, intent and goal setting. Basically, it's a little bit about how to use these practices to develop yourself into the best version of you that you can be. I believe when you improve yourself, you enhance your wealth. And a little bit of a background on me. So my name's Jeremy, Jez or JC, however you know me as or would like to refer to me as, that's fine. Basically, I developed the coaching called Chi Coaching brand, and that's because I had lost my inner life force energy at one point, and it was only through the cultivation of Chi energy that I felt my life and well-being return to me. So I've been on a bit of a path of meditation. When I first began, it was at my mum's house, and she came in halfway through and I yelled at her to get out. Needless to say, I was not too conscious or aware back then. These days, it's probably been about 5 to 6 years since I began meditating properly. I've still had waxes and wanes of it, but I found it incredibly beneficial to get myself into a state where I could lower the stream of thoughts and begin to take back control of the mind rather than it being in control of me. I'm pretty prone to overthinking, and the mind is quite dominant in me, and if I let it go uncontrolled, it burns up a lot of energy, and I just don't have the well-being or the energy to do as much as when I meditate consistently. So I'm going to go a little bit into the benefits of meditation, a few different types of meditation, and also some tips to make it a more regular part of your life. So I meditate because it quietens the mind, creates space for myself to inhabit, where I can actually become more of that higher self. The times that I've meditated, especially last year, I went through a phase of such deep meditation where I quietened the mind, I connected with my breath, I really went deep into the state, and basically I started to feel like this more authentic and higher self take place of the lower self that is there when we're not doing these practices that cultivate awareness and consciousness. So I find meditation increases certainty. If there's a time when you're not sure what you're doing, if you go and meditate and you calm the mind and you still yourself, it generates a large amount of certainty within you. And that certainty gives you a lot of momentum to put into work. I found last year, when I was probably in my peak performance of productivity, I was actually sitting down, doing a task for half an hour to an hour, and then between switching tasks, I'd meditate and completely clear the mind, and it would be like a refresh, and I'd be able to approach the next one with such clarity and vision that my productivity was the best it's ever been, and I'm working towards getting back there now. And also meditation is quite proven to improve resilience to stress. I find maybe my own personal slant that having a higher amount of certainty safeguards you against external stress. And basically, I can go into that later on, but yeah, authentic actions are what come from that, creating space for self, where you, I guess, have more presence and more stillness, so you can act more in line with how you want to. You know, when something catches you off guard, or when something you're in a rush or you're stressed, in those states, you're not going to be as authentic with who you want to be as when you're in a more calm and meditative state. And to the point of stress, meditation's proven to bring down cortisol levels, and that's something that can bring down stress in the moment too. I just wanted to add. So there's a few different types of meditation, ranging from mindfulness, where you watch the mind, quieten the thoughts; focused meditation, where you're just focusing on your breathing in and out; movement meditation, like Tai Chi, Qigong; They're quite beneficial. I actually have done that myself with a bunch of 60-year-old women in a country town many years ago, but I still to this day use some of the techniques. And because you have to move your right hand, left hand, and leg all in unison, it requires a large amount of concentration, and that concentration takes you out of your mind and brings you into the present moment. So that's really beneficial. Plus there's the whole benefit of flexibility and energizing the body. And I definitely think, chi coaching, doing any activity that promotes chi is going to improve your well-being, and that's going to improve your productivity. Then we've got progressive relaxation, like body scan is one that's commonly used in guided meditations, where it'll wave your consciousness or awareness through mind, head down, torso, and into your feet. And as you feel different parts of your body, you can become a bit more aware of where you're holding tension and dissolve it. So that just promotes more body awareness. Yoga Nidra, that is fantastic, and I recommend everyone do that, especially anyone keen on improving their productivity. It's really good to calm the nervous system, but there's also research that it could be beneficial for neuroplasticity. If you get to a point where you're feeling mental tension, where you're getting tired, where you're almost overwhelmed, go to a Yoga Nidra, and it really helps integrate that stuff and get you back to, it almost feels like a full night's sleep, but it only takes 15 minutes. So big recommendation on that one. And finally, visualization type meditations, which are your guided meditations that you'll find on YouTube. Of course, you can take yourself through that, and they're ones that will use the 5 senses, will make them more effective. And I can hit me up for some resources on those which I can share with you. So which one do I recommend? I think starting with guided meditation is beneficial. It just gives you high certainty. If your mind's in a dominant state, then you're going to have something to follow, and it can be very tricky to sit down and watch your thoughts and do a mindfulness meditation if your mind is quite dominant, because it will draw you into thoughts. And that's fine if you want to roll with that, but it can be easier to just do guided meditations to begin with. But really just try each of them out and see what works for you. Take action. That's pretty much the best way. Visualizations, as I said, and focus on the breathing later on. And the main thing is just start and see where it goes. It's good to focus on enjoyment rather than the outcome. Especially if you've got to a point of meditative practice before, you can think, yeah, I know how good meditation feels. That's what I need to feel when I meditate. The problem is when you let a practice slip, you're back at the start, which is when it's not that enjoyable to do. It requires basically a little bit of discipline to get into it at that point, and then you can actually start to reap the benefits later on. The thing is, if you used to meditate for an hour at a time and then you try and do that now, you don't have the energetic capacity, the awareness, the attention, all the things that support that level of practice. Where you might be now is 5 minutes, and so if you focus on doing 2 minutes of meditation, you'll find that enjoyable, and that would be far better to focus on the enjoyment rather than feeling good from it as an outcome. And the main thing, like that point I just mentioned, is being disciplined, creating space for it, just going, okay, this is something I want in my life, and now I'm going to create space for it. And that's true for any routine or habit that you want to create. Frequency over duration is key, I think. So rather than trying to do that half an hour meditation, and instead what happens is you're like, yeah, I've got to do a proper meditation, and then you don't do it for weeks, and it becomes overwhelming, and you procrastinate and you push it into the future. You'd be better off doing a short meditation of 1 to 2 breaths and doing that a few times throughout the day, doing it consistently daily. However, focus on frequency over duration. Don't try and do big meditations. Little ones, enjoy it, create space for it regularly. If you need to get a bit of a kickstart, a guided or class to get some momentum, hit me up. I'm keen to do some group meditations, so that can be a way to get into it. And the Buddha has a good quote that whenever you're focusing on your breath, you're meditating. That really just takes the whole conceptual idea out of it, that you have to be sitting, legs crossed, eyes closed. You know, it can be sitting at the computer, even right now. Just take a bit of a deep breath and breathe out tension, bring in positivity, breathe out tension. Easy as that. And doing that regularly, frequently, is going to train your nervous system. It's going to put you in that parasympathetic state rather than sympathetic, because my personal philosophy is bring down stress, increase well-being, channel that into productivity, and that's going to create success. And the more you meditate, the more you're going to be in that parasympathetic state, which decreases stress, increases well-being. Plus, you get the benefit of, being that higher version of yourself, which feels amazing. On to journaling. So I got into journaling only this year, to be honest. I went through a pretty tough time of suffering after one of the most significant relationships of my life, and basically it caused me, admittedly, I put a lot of attachments on the relationship, and when it was taken away, when it dissolved, I was left holding the pieces of what I thought I had, and that suffering was so great that I had to channel it. At the time I was working in the mines, I just signed up to do 4 weeks straight of 84-hour weeks, and with 1 day off, and basically I had nothing to distract me. I didn't know anyone there, so I was just in the donga, as they call it, like a room that's got very little to stimulate the mind, and I was at work and I was just like absolutely torn. And then I'd come back to this room and I just remember myself being there. My life had actually quite neatly packed up in Adelaide, where I was. My car had broken down, the house I was in I'd had to give back, the relationship had folded, and I just remember sitting there in this room thinking to myself, it's just me right here, right now. And I had this immense amount of suffering, and I channeled that into a journal, and that ended up growing into a 90,000 word self-reflection journal over the course of 6 months. And I think that that was probably the only realistic way I could have dealt with that, short of a psychologist, which would have cost, just incredible amounts of money. But yeah, so journaling is something that probably saved me at that point, and I have used it intermittently. I've just started, actually, as I created this workshop, bringing it back into my life, and that's another thing that actually helps you get in touch with your inner self and really feel a bit of connection with your subconscious, I guess I would say, where you can yes, thank you. You need my reminder there. Getting some content off your mind. At the end for me, I like to journal at the end of the day when you've just got a heap of things swirling around your mind, and then I just start to write a stream. And I actually started off like I was writing it for someone else, where I was like pretending I was sending him a message, and just was brutally honest, just said everything that, like just broke through all that vulnerability. Like imagine you're going to send a message to your best friend or whoever it is, and you just spill your guts and you just tell them things that you wouldn't even be that you wouldn't want them to hear, wouldn't want them to see, that you barely want to admit to yourself, and just express that into your journal. I actually do it on my phone, and somehow, I guess because I write so much messages, that actually is easier for me to disengage with my thinking mind, and I just like get into a flow, and I can write probably like 500 words in about 15 minutes without really, just channeling it. And yeah, it's quite therapeutic. So I definitely recommend using that as a bit of a practice to get stuff off your mind, to get more in touch with your subconscious self, and ask yourself the question, why did you do it? Like if you're like, today I was, feeling triggered by this, like why was that? And just coach yourself and really take yourself deeper into the layers why underneath. I did that with my journaling earlier in the year, where I was feeling triggered about the relationship, and I was like, why was that? And as I kept going down each layer, I realized, okay, because I feel like it will make me look stupid. Okay, do I look stupid? Do I feel stupid? I don't. okay, well, I can release that. Or maybe it was something to do with rejection. And through that journaling, it really brought me far more in touch with who I am. And there was so much deep knowing and understanding that came from that, yeah, I highly recommend just flowing with it. And again, just do it about the enjoyment. If you start to feel mental tension rise, you've probably even gone too far. Just do it while you're in the flow. And as things stream out, that's great. But don't try and achieve anything. Don't try and be like, I have to do about this content. You can just write whatever on your mind. It doesn't have to be the deep self-work. It could be like, today I went to the shop, and, just let it flow is my takeaway message. Moving on to intents and goal setting. So just a bit of a distinguishing. So intents versus goals. Basically, an intent might be something that's more, I want to make more money. I want to improve my wealth. Whereas a goal will be like, I want to have $100,000 by 2022. And that, for example, will be tangible, whereas the intent will be more something you can grow into, like improve your wealth consciousness or something to that degree, and more internal, focused about who you're becoming and how you affect others, and that can be done in the present moment. So I like to think of that as where you're directing your focus, like what's your intent, like what do you want to create, and a goal is more tangible of what you want to achieve. And that's the goal flying in. So how I use intention for self-growth. Basically, I think it's quite beneficial to query your intentions for self at regular intervals. Do them daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. And so who you want to be on a daily basis, who you want to grow into weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. And that way it just kind of sets you a bit of a intention of a direction for who you want to become. And especially before an important meeting or before an interaction with others, ask the questions on the next slide and really visualize and understand what your intention is for any action. And that could be really be intentional with everything. Like, when you get in the car, like your purpose there is to focus. So bringing in a bit of presence, that's really going to take you to the next level in all that you do. So what do you ask? On a daily, I would ask myself, what version of me do I want to bring in today? So I might want to be the more authentic version of myself that is caring and understanding and communicative with people. What energy do I want to bring? I want to bring high energy. I want to be relatable. I want to be communicative. I want to feel high energy. And a few of these things will overlap to some degree, but it's worth asking each of these questions, because it's really going to bring a more three-dimensional visualization of who you want to be today. And so how do I want to feel? Like, I might want to feel meaning and purpose, that I want to feel that what I'm doing matters, that I want to feel uplifted and connected with people. I want others to feel seen. I want them to feel heard. I want them to see value in what I'm doing. And then for more of a business, entrepreneurial aspect, I'll create a focus theme for today. Sorry about that. Where my focus theme might be on communication. And why is that important? Because I need to be more impactful to my audience. And so I'll take 3 keywords that really resonate with me from those questions I asked, that I want to be the guiding 3 keywords for today, where it might be authentic, communication, high energy. And I'll put them in my calendar, and I'll just see them as an all-day event, and I'll just recheck it every now and then, and I'll just use that to realign myself throughout the day. And finally, what am I working on today? So that might have come from the theme where I'll be like, yep, today I'm working on communication. And that's basically all about my self-growth within the business and self for the day. Obviously, they're interwoven. And then using goals for success. So taking from perhaps what I'm working on, communication, I'll go, yep, I'm working on developing my audience and connecting with my audience. What are the outcomes I want to produce today? Okay, I want 5 people to have conversed with me, and I want, let's just say 5 people to have connected with me. And what will be a measure for the success of my intent of what I'm working on? That will be me having messaged 10 people, for example. And then I'll know that I don't just have the intent, but I've actually got some clear measure of success for it. And then, because like, let's say it was like I want to improve myself. Awesome. I might have gone up a level, but how do I know that? If I actually was like, okay, I'm going to put a measure of success there where I feel like, not subjective, but objective. I am now constantly showing up on social media. For the last 30 days, I've posted daily. That would be a measure of success for the intent. And that's going to conclude the workshop. So I was going to do a guided meditation, and that was just for the people that attended. So if you want to experience that, perhaps join up or DM me for the next workshop. And until then, I'll leave you with that. Hopefully there was some wisdom, some nuggets in there that will help you improve yourself. Do get back to me and give me some feedback on what was helpful, what wasn't, what you'd like to see more. I was pretty taxed by the end of that, so bear with me if I got a little bit shaky on the end. And yeah, look forward to hearing.